time for that announcer voice you've been practicing. The Wright Report with your host, Benjamin Wright. That's W-R-I-G-H-T. Homeless News and Housing Policy, the Right Way. Episode 1. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Wright Report. That's W-R-I-G-H-T. Boy, that's not going to get old, is it? We'll be bringing you weekly headline reports of housing policy and homeless news in the Denver metro area, maybe some national stuff too. The weekly report will consist of a reading of local headlines in my fancy super announcer's voice. The headline will be followed by a quick summary of the contents and perhaps a comment from your host. That's me, W-R-I-G-H-T. Has it gotten old yet? In addition, we will also intermittently produce in-depth reports. There may not be a lot of in-depth follow-ups after this episode comes out, but things will improve. Yeah, sure, they'll improve. I promise. So you might be asking yourself, what exactly is the Wright Report? At the Wright Report, we report on housing and homeless policy, how they interact together, and how these issues are covered in the news. We would like you to be better informed by reviewing news coverage of housing policy and homelessness, paying attention to how the coverage is framed and who framed it, hence the commentary. And with a little luck, have some fun along the way. So let's get it right. With the Wright Report. Links to the source articles available in the comments section. The Denver Post publishes a multi-article report titled Seeking Solutions, a report that considers housing policies across the city and across the state. Here comes that announcer voice I told you about. Colorado's affording housing crisis has spread from the mountains to the Front Range. Is inclusionary zoning an effective solution? This project looks at results from Denver, Boulder, mountain towns, and more. Now here comes the summary part. Colorado faces a shortfall of 100,000 homes and apartments, the second worst deficit of any state after California, according to a study last year from Up for Growth, a home buyer misery index from the Common Sense Institute found that households in the state's largest counties are facing record high levels of stress. Now, here's a little bit of that commentary I talked about. Remember the name of this think tank, the Common Sense Institute. It's a local conservative think tank. They often get involved into setting narratives concerning about housing. Intermittently, they'll come up with various studies. No, they're not MAGA types. Think more business district types. Definitely conservative, definitely interested in profit, definitely connected with the real estate lobby. Yeah. Now back to that fancy announcer voice. Boulder's affordable housing approach was once a trailblazer. Now, Denver is catching up. Denver is still working through a glut of projects submitted in 2022 to duck inclusionary housing rules. Governor Jared Polis and Democratic allies sought to overhaul land use rules in the state last year in hopes of spurring more housing development. They faced immediate blowback from municipalities intent on protecting their local control. Now, comment time. Of course, there was blowback. Also note the words local control when you hear them. The term local control is often used when denying access to public space to various groups of people, or to avoid the responsibility of developing low-cost or public housing. We'll note it when we see it. Back to the announcer voice. When mountain towns couldn't find affordable housing for workers, they started building homes themselves. Places like Aspen have added workforce requirements with number of units based on how many jobs projects will generate. And inclusion as inclusionary rules have morphed into workforce housing requirements, more places now require commercial developers to build or finance units based on the number of jobs their projects will generate. Westminster wrestles with housing reform as legislatures eye a statewide intervention. The affluent suburb has changed its approach as voters' desires shift. A new contingent on City Council, elected in the latest swing of opinion about density and housing, is expected to spur change in how the community approaches housing as it nears the limit of its outward development. A recent study of Westminster's housing needs, along with interviews with 18 current and past city officials, advocates, renters, and developers, describes the city at crossroads. And all of that was the Denver Post's special report seeking solutions. Now on to other news. Parking policy under scrutiny. Fine for illegally parking large vehicle will skyrocket tenfold. Comment. You might be wondering how this relates to housing. Well, here you go. Quote, we don't quote, we don't anticipate this change will have major impact on RV parking by people experiencing homelessness, said Nancy Kuhn. Right, we believe you. A Denver spokeswoman in an email, we're aiming to solve a different parking challenge around large commercial vehicles parking in our neighborhoods for long periods. More comment. I can almost guarantee you the enforcement on this will be a tool used to move homeless people living in RVs out of wherever they happen to be, despite what they claim their intentions are. Now, they might do the other too, but I guarantee you they will use it against homeless folks to get them out of sight. Second micro community for homeless people ready to open. Denver's homeless initiative on Tuesday will move more than 45 people living in an encampment near Empower Field into a new microcommunity, marking the program's first big milestone in 2024. City leaders gathered at the site to celebrate the completion of the Long in Works project, which has faced local opposition. House 1000 Homeless Initiative, recently renamed All in Mile High, has moved 1,293 people out of unsheltered homelessness and into at least temporary shelter since he took office last July. Comment. Note the words temporary shelter and how that number seems to be included in the number of people who were quote unquote housed. One of Denver's 5 mobile home parks on the chopping block, Denver's shift in attitude towards mobile home parks will be evident in the coming weeks. Community organizers have partnered with City Council to try to protect Denver's remaining mobile home parks and help residents purchase the land to run as cooperatives. Denver has historically been inhospitable to mobile home parks, creating potentially dangerous conditions. The inability to replace old units with updated units can be a safety issue, given the old age of some of Denver's mobile homes. One of 5 such properties in the city is poised to sell to its residents, with a local nonprofit and the city itself playing a role in the deal. The first phase of the deal will be to close the first phase of the deal will close in the coming weeks. The city's moratorium on redevelopment of mobile home parks, DASH, currently set to expire next month. DASH will be extended in order to make a zoning change. Historic Denver this week filed an application to protect the El Chapultepec building, a property developers want to demolish. Quote, buildings that tell the story of our city aren't necessarily the glamorous gems that stand out, said President and CEO of Historic Denver. What sets this apart is the incredible music that took place over a very long period of time and the national reputation it earned, end quote. Monfort Companies, which has owned the building since November 2022, has designed a new bar and restaurant at the site that would remove and replace the old building. Airbnb bans indoor security cameras. Comment. Stay tuned, as Denver has recently decided to increase cameras and security at places where poor people are gathered at a hotel homeless shelter. In more news, Limelight Hotel Conference Center slated to open in 2025. The hotel and conference center, called the Limelight Hotel Boulder, will have 254 rooms, 25,000 square feet of meeting space, and a 15,000 square foot ballroom, 5,000 square foot outdoor event lawn, and 585 stall parking garage. The Limelight Hotel is a collaboration between CU Boulder and the city that is developed, owned, and will be operated by Aspen Hospitality. And finally, inflation isn't the real issue for the U.S. economy. Housing is. Rising housing costs are a double-edged sword, increasing the wealth of homeowners even as they punish many renters. Since the beginning of 2022, housing wealth has added over $2 trillion to homeowners' balance sheets. Comment. Ever-increasing skyrocketing rents. On another note, this article is republished in many publications. The earliest version I found of it was in the Los Angeles Times, only to be republished in many places, including the Denver Post. Part of what we intend to do here at the Wright Report is let you know who's producing the news and where it came from, and maybe get an idea of what their objectives were for producing it. Well, that ends this week's Wright Report Weekend Review for the week of March 10th, 2024. Thank you for watching the Wright Report. All links and reference to news articles and reports will be listed in the comments. With any luck, we'll release some in-depth reports on this week's news. But until then, we'll see you next week on the Wright Report, where we do homelessness the right way. That's WRIGHT.